Canada wants to make homes affordable. What the heck does affordable mean to a lot of people? And how we're going to do that without crushing prices? Some things just don't add up. I'm going to give you my take on the latest housing minister's kind of the way they want to tackle the housing crisis we have in Canada right now. And if you're looking for some help on how to navigate the real estate market in the upcoming fall market, you can book a call with me using the link that's on the screen right here. It's www.chatwithzen.com. Simply click on the date and a time that works best for you. And then when you see the prompt, fill in your name, email, mobile phone number, and a question you have for me, and then we'll chat then. Good day, Toronto. Welcome to another episode of Prime Properties TV. My name is Zhen, and I run and operate a RE/MAX in the greater Toronto area, on top of making awesome educational real estate content just like this one for you. And if you're enjoying this content, make sure you smash the like button and subscribe to the Prime Properties channel. And while I'm talking about this kind of specific topic, I know it can get heated, so I'm going to try to be neutral as much as possible by providing a little bit of context as to the back end and how the numbers work. And I would love to hear your comments on this, because I know there's a really big debate in terms of what affordable is and how we're going to tackle our housing crisis, right? So the article obviously we're talking about is Canada wants to make home prices affordable without crushing prices. So we had a cabinet shuffle, like in the Prime Minister's office, right? So we have a new housing minister, went from, I think, somebody Hussein, I forgot his full name, to a person named Sean Fraser, right? Who, by the way, was the head of immigration. So just keep that in mind, right? So the first thing I kind of want to cover in the article, and this is like a quote from him. He says, "Our goal is to not decrease the value of their home." Okay, meaning theirs and all the homeowners in Canada. And our goal is to build more units at a price that other people who don't currently have their needs met can afford. So how do you allow other people to basically buy homes but without having prices come down? So when I read this article, I was like, okay, you know what? Maybe I need to think about this and how we can kind of map that out. Maybe he has a crazy plan, he's a super genius, or maybe he's just talking about his butthole and none of this makes sense, right? So the way I thought about this was like, okay, well, if he wants to not reduce prices, fine, right? Because they have to basically keep the homeowners who are the biggest voters, so that they can win the next election. But the only real ways to kind of keep prices the way they are and increase affordability, right, really is a few things. So when we talk about affordability, let's talk about the monthly payment, because affordability has gotten a lot worse when interest rates have gone up in the past, right? Meaning people can't afford their monthly payments on their mortgages because payments have gone up. So how do you make things affordable? Well, you reduce the interest rate, right? Because if you go from, say, our current mortgage rate of 6% down to 2%, things are very affordable again, right? So that's one way to do it. The challenge and the flip side on that is if interest rates come down, investors come back in, people drive prices back up. So like I was saying 2-3 years ago, I'm like, do you just increase the down payment requirement on investors so that instead of 20%, it's 35%? Do you make sure that the money coming to buy a home cannot be from a refinance or it can't be from a line of credit, right? So it reduces a lot of the investors in the market and allows, call it end users to buy these homes. So this way you can reduce it. So by doing that, that's one way to increase, call it, affordability for people who don't have homes, prevents investors from buying it, and prices aren't going to come down. If anything, they may go up because interest rates go up. The second, realistically, is increase wages, right? Because affordability on the other side of the equation is how much income you make, right? The more income you make, things become more affordable, right? So how do we increase income? Well, you can increase the minimum wage, or you could invest in research and development. But really, the income wage increase in Canada has been abysmal because we keep bringing in so much people, right? If you have, call it X amount of jobs, call it 10 amount of jobs, right? And you have more people coming in, and even the minimum wage here, when you bring it back home, right? So call it somewhere in the Asian countries, right? That minimum wage sent back home is still a lot of money, but it's not much here. So the people coming in here, maybe they need to survive, or call it students who need to work. They're willing to work for less so that they can actually earn that money. So the people currently right now, because of so much immigration coming in and not enough jobs being created, are actually driving wages lower and lower. So when you measure that against inflation and real estate house prices, that's why the, call it, crisis has gone so bad, and that the standard of living has also gone down along with it, right? Because the wages aren't catching up with a lot of the expenses on your day-to-day life. So those are really only two ways I can kind of think of that you could make things affordable without having the prices drop. And that's kind of why you have to almost restrict the demand side, which is what I think the federal government has always done, right? Immigration, foreign buyers, et cetera, et cetera. But I don't think they're kind of turning off the proper spigots, right? So at the end of the day, like the thing is they can control is definitely still the demand side because it has more immediate impact on what's going on, because the supply side, it takes a long time to ramp up, as you can tell, right? Like building a condo is anywhere like 6+ years right now. If it's like a high rise, even building a home and servicing it and building the roads is like 2-3 years, right? So that stuff takes some time. Now, the next part of the article I have here, which is another interesting quote I want to pull out, is we should be working to more closely tie our immigration levels to both our industrial policy and to the absorptive capacity of communities. Remember, he used to be the head of immigration, which includes, but is not limited to, housing. It's important that we don't reduce our population target, do not reduce the population targets, but instead increase our housing supply targets. So I was saying earlier, they're clearly not turning off the correct spigots, right, for the demand side, and they're just saying increasing housing supply. I'm glad that this is kind of like upfront for a lot of people and they're aware of it now, but it's almost too little too late, because it's almost like an emergency we have of how the housing we have, because people are sleeping on the streets now. So it's really, really bad. So my question for a lot of this is, how do we increase housing supply, right? Because real estate is so much of like the city's revenue because they collect so much taxes on it, right? So my whole thing has always been like, you know what, just increase property taxes. It's not going to be the thing that's going to be popular, right? I think the latest mayor, Olivia Chow, may be doing in the future, but you probably need to increase it more than what it's worth, because the multiplier, the mill rate in Toronto is like 0.065, so like not even 1% of the assessed value, whereas a lot of the surrounding regions it's like 1.5, 1.6%, right? So the most expensive areas have the lowest tax rates, and I think when your values go up because you're in the most expensive areas, you should definitely be paying more taxes on that, right? So you should increase the mill rate, because right now where a lot of the government is getting their revenue is from the new homes, right? So like all the new homes, there's HST on top of it, development charges, park levy charges, there's so much stuff. It's like 30% of a new home. So if you have $1 million home, $300,000 of that goes to the government. So why don't we just take that chunk out, right? Increase property taxes, so revenue is the same thing, right? And then if the builders are going to pass on those savings, right, to the end users, then great, then we may have prices come down. But I don't think that's even going to happen, because if the builders see that as ability to make money, you kind of have to have the government control them so that if they do reduce taxes, it would be kind of provided back to the end user people who are buying them, right? So that's kind of like a tricky thing. And then you also have the lending side, right? Like the big banks. So if say, your average home is $1 million and all of a sudden people are buying these things for $700,000, then any bank that has a mortgage and a collateral against it, right? The value of that collateral just went down 30%. So I don't think the banks are going to like that either, right? So even as me as a homeowner, let's say, you know what, I'll take a 30% haircut of the value of my home, right? So that other people can buy the properties. Are other people going to allow that? Are there other people going to let them do that? Because so much is riding on it, right? So that's kind of why when I look at this, like this person is saying the right things by saying like we're trying to make things more affordable without trying to bring prices down. Because if you do bring prices down, there's definitely avenues to do it. I just don't think they're gonna do it, right? Then you also have to kind of look at the other component of like, what is affordability, right? Like to a person who doesn't own their home, they're trying to get their first home, they're looking at the entry level stuff. So that's what they're talking about, affordability. To the person who's living on the street, affordability means having some kind of roof and some food. To the person who's basically constantly being kicked out by mom and pop owners because they have to sell because of high interest rate, affordability means just finding a place where the rent is consistent without having to kind of like increase, like the living costs increase in their budget, right? So affordable means different things for different people. And they need to like define that, because it's just kind of like a word that's just like thrown out there with no real meaning, right? So if we talk about the rental side, because I already talked about like the ownership side of the rental side, I think the government needs to incentivize like private builders to kind of build purpose-built apartment buildings, right? Because we haven't built a lot of them in a long time, right? So again, same thing, reduce taxes, maybe allow them to increase how they can like have the CCA written off faster like they did in the 70s, and then also allow them to increase rent. But if you allow a lot more of these apartment buildings to come up, at least people won't be displaced because it's a big corporation owning this, right? So you need to incentivize a lot of people like that. The other thing you could probably do is like the government could start building, but I don't think that's very efficient. What they could do is they could partner with a lot of private builders so that they give up some of the land, so that reduces the cost of acquisition. And you do that like half affordable rent and half kind of market rent in the same building, kind of what to do with like the inclusionary zoning, which should be removed. So like those are a lot of different options I think could work, right? I would love to hear in the comment section below what you guys think, right? But when you have someone kind of saying that they want to make things affordable and without bringing prices down, yes, it can be doable, but like I don't know if they're going to pull all the right kind of levers to make it happen. Like I just mentioned a couple in like this video, but I just don't see them doing it, right? That's the problem. So like if they're not going to let go of immigration, right, and they're going to continue increasing, and we talked about why they want to do this before, right? It's just like total GDP needs to go up, so they're going to have a lot of people come in. It's very hard for us to kind of have prices not keep going up if they don't change the way that they're building, or at least the demand side. So it's all kind of like, it sounds great, but I wonder how many people truly believe that they could do this without pulling the levers that they're afraid of pulling. That's kind of how I interpreted a lot of this article, and maybe why this new housing minister is in over their heads a little bit. Anyways, I just want to give you my take on this because I know it's been kind of like a lot of the chatter as of late, like it sounds great, but like when you kind of, truly have critical thinking about it, yeah, it's possible, right? But like, I don't think they're going to do it. That's kind of the challenge. Anyways, hope this gives you an idea of what's happening in the real estate market right now, all the chatter. I don't think any of this is going to affect the real estate market. It is really just chatter, for lack of a better term. And if you do want help with working with our team on how to navigate the real estate market, whether they're buying, selling, or investing, you can book a call with me using the link that's on the screen right here. It's www.chatwithzen.com. Until next time, your move, your future. See ya! Now that I'm done watching this video, I think you should check out this video. And you know what? Why don't you check out this video too?